blabber for a couple of seconds while the gods of Facebook allow us on their precious platform. If you're watching live, thank you so much for coming on live with us or on the replay, indeed, for the 10K Collective podcast, the place to be for 6, 7, 8-figure Amazon sellers, a subset of the amazing FBA family of podcasts. We've got the logos around us. I'm your host, Michael Veazey. Today, we are talking with Alexis Lanternier from Branded about Amazon SEO, the oldest topic in the world to discuss on an Amazon podcast, but nevertheless, critical to get right. And you guys have some amazing insights. So, Alexis, welcome live with us. Thanks so much for coming on.
Hello, Michael. Very
Hi
happy to be
there.
on board.
Yeah, great stuff. So in a second, we're going to record the podcast. If you're watching live with us, then please feel free to put some comments in and we can try and weave it into the podcast if they're relevant. Please stick to the topic at hand, which is Amazon SEO. So please don't ask me if you think I should do retail arbitrage or not. That's not relevant for Alexis. And you're welcome to ask any questions that occur to you if you're on the replay as well, and we'll do our best to give you the answers, particularly in the Facebook group. I'm quite often in there, and we'll scan for questions and try and answer the best I can. But other than that, Alexis, you ready to record the podcast as live within this live stream? Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the 10K Collective podcast, the place to be for 6, 7, and 8-figure Amazon private label and custom product sellers, a subset of the amazing FBA family of podcasts. And I'm your host, Michael Veazey. Today, we're talking about Amazon SEO, the oldest topic ever, but obviously just as critical as it's always been. We are talking, however, with a real expert, Alexis Lanternier, the Chief Operating Officer of Branded.com, which has a huge number of products that they run the operations for, which gives them incredible amount of in-house data. And therefore, what Alexis has to say is really, really worth hearing. So first of all, warm welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Michael.
Good to have you with us. So where are you coming to us from, Alexis?
I'm French, and I'm living near to Paris in Versailles, next to
Versailles.
a very famous chateau.
Absolutely, yes, the place to be for bling, back in for forever really. So how many brands and products? Let's start with this first question, just to clarify the level of authority that you bring to this topic. How many brands and products are you managing at Branded.com in total?
So yeah, I've been in e-commerce for a while now. I spent more than a decade building e-commerce platform, both in Europe, Asia, and North America. And we started Branded a bit more than a year and a half ago. First by acquiring brands that were existing. So we acquired 40 brands. Half of the founder of the brand are still with us. That's one of the specificity of Branded. And we have a few thousands of product now.
Great. So that obviously means that you're got a lot of data points or data points, as people are obsessed with, but also got the insights that come from a lot of vigorous experimentation. So Amazon SEO, it's the oldest thing that anyone's ever stressed about who sells on Amazon. What is the starting point for best practice for this? Where do we even start with a topic that's quite technical and there's a lot of conflicting information sometimes flying around?
No, I think that's exactly right, Michael. The key is to remove the conflicting information. So the way we do that is very mathematical. And actually, once you have the data, quite simple. So Amazon releases more data now. We are able for each keyword to estimate the unit volume sold. That is given by Amazon now. On top of that, with Brand Analytics, you are able to know the conversion rate of the top products. So you can estimate how many units they got. And then with Alien, then you can track, on all the keywords that are relevant to you, where you rank and where your competitor rank. So competitor, I mean people selling the same product. And with all that data, what you can do is basically estimate the volume of units sold per month for the product that you are interested in, on the top 100 or whatever top you want, but top 100 is usually enough. And with that, you can actually get rid of all the conflicting information, because with that, you have what matters. You know which are the most important keywords, and you know how much more important they are than the other. On this keyword, it's selling 100 units of my product. On this keyword, it's selling 50 units of my product. Hence, the first keyword is 2 times more important than the second keyword. That makes the whole discussion about SEO way more simple, especially because the Amazon algorithm is quite simple. Contrary to Google SEO, for example, is extremely complex. Amazon SEO is quite fairly logical and easy to understand, which is mostly based. I mean, what you control, the part that you control, is mostly based on the keyword stuffing, the way you put keywords in, right? Then there is the conversion part, which is obviously important. And for that, you need to create great content, attractive product, good pricing, and so on. But if we think really SEO, obviously we are just talking about what we control. And so you have this list of, again, 100 keywords usually. That's what we're focusing on. And then based on that, you can, put the keywords. First, you do your title, and you try to optimize the percentage of the total sales available that are in your title, meaning the fact that each keyword that are in your title, you account for the sale they are doing, and then you sum up all those sales on those keywords, and you say, okay, my title is covering 50% of the total addressable market on my product. And then you repeat, because each section seems to operate differently from an Amazon perspective. So you repeat for the bullet points, you repeat for the A+ content, which we believe is actually indexed by Amazon. And lastly, but very importantly, you can use what we call the alt text, which is the ability that Amazon gives you to create text on the image you put on your A+ content, because this one is indexed for sure. And so you repeat again that operation. And so you try to maximize the percentage of the business you cover for each of those sections by adding the right keywords. So that's the theory. You do that on one product. And again, the beauty, as you mentioned, the beauty of being a large group is that you can test on many products and then before impacting the rest of your business. And then what is very important is to measure results. So you take the picture and it's okay. Right now, based on my ranking, so you put a weight on the ranking and you can estimate overall, pre-changing my SEO, I am, you can change your KPI, but what we look at usually is to be the top 10. So I'm in the top 10 covering 40% of the addressable market. I changed my SEO and now I am in the top 10 in 50% of my addressable market. Hence, my SEO was a good change, which is, it seems logical and easy, but this is the major difference, that we have something that is non-questionable. This is an improvement, which is something we took quite a bit of time to figure out. And actually, before Amazon released new data, it was impossible to do. It's something that is now feasible, I think, for the past 3 months. And it really changed our way of thinking about it, because before it was always a bit hard to judge the impact. We were looking at the indexing of the keyword, but never really sure of which keyword was the most important. And I think for me, that's the huge game changer on SEO, is to be able to really estimate which keywords are the most important.
Okay, wow. So there's lots to take on board, and as you'd expect from an operations expert, a lot of it comes down to detail. So let me just try and break some of this down to give people a chance to absorb this. So the first thing is then the brand analytics use. So the change that's come about is that the brand analytics is giving us a conversion rate of the topics, and that's the change that you mentioned.
So that was
right?
here for a while already.
That's what I
That's
thought.
quite
Yeah,
probably 2 years or 3 years.
that's what I
Now, what
thought.
is new? What is new is the Opportunity Explorer, which I believe is in the tab growth opportunity. So it's a tool that Amazon gives to help people do product research, because Amazon wants to push the seller to find new product to launch. And there you have an estimation of the average volume for any given keywords. And that combined with the brand analytics conversion rate, so that they give you for the top 3 percentage of sales of the total keyword. With that, you can basically estimate, and it's rough estimate, but basically estimate, if you are in the top 10, you probably have a conversion rate, or top 3, you have a conversion rate of 6%, and 4 to 10, you have a conversion rate of 3%. We do it, high level. It doesn't have to be perfect, because what matters is to rank the keyword against each other. So it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. It's more to have a solution to rank the keyword in terms of importance.
Great. No, that's very, very good to be clear. So in other words, what you're saying is, to everyone who's going, well, Helium 10's not right. It doesn't show my exact sales and all those kinds of things. It's like it doesn't have to be in absolute terms correct at all. It just needs to be relative to the values of keywords. That's a very helpful, and as you say, that feels like a weight off my mind in terms of what am I trying to achieve analytically. The barrier is relatively low. You want to rank order your keywords. Tell me a bit of what, so the Opportunity Explorer, which I confess I haven't personally used. I need to look at it as soon as I get off this call, really. But the average volume of keyword search volume, or does it tell you the sort of commercial value in dollars or euros?
No, units sold. Units sold.
Units sold. Okay, perfect. Yeah, but that's pretty much translatable to the conversion value. Yeah. That is really, really big. I'm kind of ashamed that I hadn't spotted that. Obviously, it goes to show that I haven't been keeping an eye on brand analytics and revisiting it. To the point you made, though, as we are talking about this off air, a lot of people do this once when they launch a product. What you said is pre-SEO in the top 10 of 40% of the total addressable market, now in the top 50% of TAM. That implies that you're doing this more than once. So do you think that's one of the keys? Is that what you believe is one of the missing pieces?
Yeah, I think obviously there will be diminishing returns, but what we clearly see is that keywords change over time for sure. Also, competitors find other keywords, and when they find them, then you can get information from that and identify new keywords that you didn't have in your list. And by the way, on finding keywords, obviously you also have PPC broad match that give you insight on new keywords to look after. And and what I say here, I think it's important. We see that often is as we always copy each other on the Amazon world, which is good, that makes this whole platform vibrant and very competitive, and as a result, great for customer. We also forget sometimes to be a bit creative and to go a bit beyond what the other are doing. So here, look for the keywords where only one competitor is ranked, but very well. And look for again broad PPC that give you good conversion rate, good click through and conversion rate on PPC on a keyword where you don't organically rank very well. That is often an indication of keywords that are underused, where obviously the percentage estimation cell will not work at the beginning, so you will have to SEO it. So that's kind of the additional list. And we are back to the problem of how do you weight everything. So let's keep focused on having the keyword estimation volume and prioritizing that based on that. But don't forget to add a little bit of extra keyword where it's harder to estimate the volume, but we could find some nuggets there of value. So keep a little bit of space for those.
Excellent. Okay, so that sounds like a lot to take on board, but really reassuring in a way as well. Tell me about the A plus content. So you get those are ones of the things that people argue about. Does it really affect ranking? Is it even worth bothering with versus, spending the money and effort on, some images for a new product line, for example? That would be the obvious types of choices. So what's the data that you're seeing in terms of the value and the impact of A plus content?
It's a good question. I think it's a difficult one. It's a very difficult one because obviously, contrary to SEO, where we are able to put in place a mathematical approach that is then repeatable, and so we can say with confidence, yeah, it works, and I repeat it, and it works again. A plus is difficult because every time we do A plus for one product, it's different than what we did for the others. So it's much harder to say, okay, yeah, we have the secret recipe, it works every time. Clearly, it doesn't. Clearly, it doesn't. Then the beauty of Amazon that they give you this tool of doing A/B plus A/B test on A plus content now, and so as a result you have to test it. So I don't have sadly any better advice than do the A/B test, wait for the 4 weeks. It's long, but it's always very surprising. So just do it. No amount of external check, insight, and so on is worse versus the A/B test. And I tend to believe we have very good people with very good intuition in our teams, and they often get surprised. So I think that's for me something that you have to do, no matter how confident you are. You have to go through this A/B test. And I don't have a secret recipe. Honestly, we don't have a 100% run. I would say honestly 50% of the time we fail. Maybe slightly less than that now, but a good amount of time we discover that it sounds logical, it sounds better, but it sells less.
Yeah, as you said, there's no accounting for the market's actual behavior, and yeah, you're right. That's the humility we've all got to learn, which doesn't mean we give up creativity, right? What I love about A/B testing is you come up with something creatively, and that's the creative side, and then you test it against reality, and that's the analytical side, right? It's a kind of beautiful dance that we play in digital marketing. So yeah, I absolutely love the fact that we've got A/B testing on the platform now is one of those things that I love personally. I think if people aren't using it and you do, that's an easy competitive advantage, right? So that's beautiful. So for that reason alone, I guess that's reasonably concrete. So in terms of conversion rate, I presume that you're talking about, but the SEO side, you're less confident about the values. Is that a summary that's accurate?
No, exactly right. Exactly right. You still
Great.
have to be creative. I mean, sometimes it works very well. Don't get me
Yeah, of
wrong.
course. Yeah.
I'm just saying that there is no, I didn't find yet the secret sauce. We have a few tips and tricks and so on, and put the product as big as possible, and put lifestyle images and blah, blah, blah. I mean, we have this long list of tips and tricks that you can
Okay.
find
Well, in that case,
anywhere.
that's a red rag to a bull. So I'd love to hear your list of tips and tricks. You don't need to give us all of them, but maybe sort of top few tips for A plus content, because a lot of people will not have the imagination to do it.
No, I think I would actually focus more on the image in that case, the main image. I think that's honestly where spending time and so on usually bring the more money for the effort. I think on the main image is really like get the product as big as possible. So find the right angle to extend the product as big as possible. All
Okay.
products that are giftable, make sure you add the package to it, and have a nice package, obviously, if you do that, which, by the way, enable you to re-put on the image the few. So even if your package is not exactly saying that, making sure, or maybe you can increase the font of, you have a real package and then you have the package on Amazon. If you, for example, increase the font of the package on Amazon to showcase the main message that you have on your real packaging, I think that's acceptable and that's very impactful. What else? Yeah, an interesting one is the mobile-friendly format, which I think is totally overlooked by many of our competitors, which is the fact that for whatever reason, Amazon is doing a different size format. One is vertical, the other is horizontal for desktop versus mobile. And so usually everybody tends to optimize for desktop. Because that's what people work on, and so they check usually their product on desktop, but that doesn't optimize the size of their product and their image on mobile. So that's something that is very actionable and that I recommend to do to everyone, because that's clearly a winner, because a big majority of the purchases are made on mobile.
Yeah, that makes total sense, and it's funny to hear you say that, because I've been begging my clients for several years to check everything they do on mobile always, and so it's funny to hear that people still aren't doing that. It seems like an obvious thing, but it comes down to certain types of workflow that we do as sellers, which becomes separated for how we act when we pick up our phone and shop, right? When I pick up my phone and shop, it's, click, done, and then it's over, right? Whereas when I sit and think about the listing for hours, I disconnect from that insight. So it's interesting what you're saying there. Great. So what we've touched on, I guess, conversion rate. Now, obviously, when it comes to Amazon SEO, there is a sort of what's the word, positive feedback loop in engineering terms. So if you get your conversion rate right, you're more visible. If you're more visible, you get more conversions. So how do you work on optimizing the conversion rate? Obviously, you said good images, great product, obvious stuff. Are there any sort of slightly more technical things or patterns that have emerged from across the many thousands of products you've managed?
I think in retail there is nothing that replaces a good product at a good price. So I think we need to, although it's not always what the agency wants to sell, of course, but there is nothing that beats a great product at a great price. Nothing. So that is honestly what we are focusing on relentlessly. The product quality, understanding the review, working with the manufacturer, and so on. And then on the pricing, obviously, it's something that you look at your competition and you test. I think what we do usually, because we have more product and we can take more risk, is to test a lot of pricing. Obviously, even more in this period where costs are increasing, FBA fee are increasing every 3 months. We have to obviously test new pricing to be able to keep the profitability we need to exist. So yeah, I think pricing is looking at the competition, testing the effect of coupon, no coupon, testing the effect of prime exclusive deal versus non-prime exclusive deal. Sometimes you get surprised. and then having regular campaign. I think for us, the ideal pricing positioning is close to a psychological pricing, creating enough margin to be able to run a campaign 7-day deals every 4 weeks, and then ideally having enough profitability to add a bit of a coupon, because that adds extra visibility and extra catch to the eyes, and it's only used 50% of the time, so it's usually a good deal in terms of impact versus cost. So that's kind of the ideal situation. Sometimes we cannot, because the product is priced and the margin structure makes it difficult to be at the psychological price with a coupon plus doing campaign every 4 weeks. So that's where we have to make trade-off. So very, very case by case basis, but that would be the ideal case.
Yeah, I like it, but I think you make a very good point about enough margin enables you to do certain marketing efforts that you just can't without. And obviously, everyone just wants the biggest margin possible. But when you're evaluating which products to put money into and which products are selling, which products aren't, I guess some products have enough margin in them to be able to try some marketing things out. Other products, I've got some clients like that in the mastermind, their margins are so thin that they can't do advertising, they can't run coupons, they can't really do anything without destroying their margin. So it's part of the picture that feeds back to capital allocation and resource allocation, right? Where do we focus? What products we reorder? What products we focus on? What products are we going to sunset? So talking of which, I guess that's a bigger topic, by the way, but staying within sort of Amazon SEO world, the other factor that of course feeds in, unlike in theory on the Google platform, for example, is Amazon PPC, which we all know feeds directly into Amazon, organic SEO. So how do you approach PPC in the context of Amazon SEO, to get ranking?
So for us, there is the key again is good product, good price, good ranking, finding your sweet spot. If you have a good sourcing, there is no reason you cannot find. And you have good sourcing, good content, you should be able to find the sweet spot. The sweet spot where your price is correct, your margin is okay, you have a good enough volume. If not, basically it's a product failure. So you can do PPC like crazy to try to compensate for that, but it will not be sustainable. So you have to think about either sunsetting the product, either finding the issue with your product. We don't believe it's sustainable to have a PPC above 10%, TACoS above 10%, basically. So that would be kind of the trigger where we're like, okay, there is a problem with this product, if that's needed. And then PPC will be used for the launch or re-ranking when we think we are not at the spot we should be. So PPC will be a boost to get there, mostly obviously when we launch product. And then on all the most important keyword, PPC should be as limited as possible. And then PPC will be used for the long tail keyword where it's okay, we don't rank very well, it's long tail keyword, it's going to be very incremental. It's sales that we won't have anyway. And so that's very helpful. What we don't believe in is the systematic PPC on top keywords where we are supposed to rank well. If not, it means our product is not relevant. That's the big insight or belief that we have.
Yeah, and I think what you've done there is just kind of short-circuited probably a year of agonizing that a lot of people do, which is to say they are trying to solve a problem at a sort of, I guess, from a product, so that in the narrow product space of one single product, at a tactical point of view, which needs to be solved at a strategic point of view, which is to say, if there's no gap in the market at a certain kind of price point, that all the consumers' needs are being filled, and nobody needs your product, then it doesn't really matter if you could hire magic elves and it still won't make your product sell profitably, right? So you can't use PPC to compensate for that. And I think you're absolutely bang on with that. I mean, I've seen a lot of people, spend months going round and round in circles before they come to that conclusion. So tell me a little bit more about this. Is interesting where we're going with this. I can tell why they hired you as a COO, because your brain works at 10,000 miles an hour in a very logical way, very impressive. If I've got a product and it's kind of on the verge of not viable, everyone has a sort of sense instinctively after a while about that, but do you have numbers or criteria where you decide if a product has failed and needs to be sunsetted, and how do you decide that kind of thing?
Yeah, we have a very simple approach, which is below 10% contribution margin. So we could do a whole session about how you calculate contribution margin to make sure you take everything into account. But basically, below 10% margin, we believe that there is no value in investing in this product long term, because we need 10% margin to just the cost of the people managing the product. So we don't count it in the contribution margin, but of course they are taking time of supply chain people, brand management people, marketing people, and so on. And also they will not, below 10% margin, you will not be able to manage or take into account all the issue that can happen. There is a strain inventory, you have to take some inventory back, there is an issue with something, you have sometime an overstock that you need to liquidate. So if you do just have 10%, you just can't. It's just not profitable long term to have this product for you. So it doesn't make sense. So that's basically when we are stuck at 10%, we reduce the price, trying to find our spot, did the PPC, did the price change, did everything we could for 3 months basically, and we're still at 10%. Then it means that the product has to be sunset, and that's where basically you're going to try to milk the remaining inventory that you have if you don't have too much. And then if you have more than a year, I think that's where you need to accept to basically make no money and just get rid of the product.
Yeah, that's a good sort of harsh reality check. Just remind us of contribution margin. Some people will argue all day about even the definitions of gross profit margin types. So just tell me what you guys define contribution margin in the simplest words you can.
Yeah, no, I think the contribution margin is basically the money you get that is totally variable, which means if you stop the product, that the money you will not get. So it's what comes out of Amazon. So it's obviously revenue minus fee, minus FBA fee, minus PPC, linked to the product, and so on. Don't forget to allocate any brand PPC that you do, any coupon costs that are usually outside. What are the other costs that are usually not counted in, or not easy to allocate? I think that's it. And then obviously the COGS, the freight, the duty. So that's it. Purely very easy to allocate cost. I don't put any team cost on it yet, but everything that is 100% allocated to the sale of that product. If I don't sell that product, I don't have to spend that money. That's basically the definition of the contribution margin. So that's really the margin that this product contributes to the group, and that enables to pay my salary basically, and the salary of the team working. Yeah. So that's what it is. And so below 10%, we don't think it's a viable product.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess 10% feels on the lower end to me anyway. I guess that the average that most Amazon sellers I work with think things are viable is more like 30 to 40%. But I mean, sometimes it's as low as 10. But if you're including PPC, then yes, you've got to be clear about that. So it's basically all your direct costs that you can attribute without actually going into overheads like team members or things like that, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, which sounds like an
just to be clear, 10% is not our target.
No, it's not. Yeah,
10% is the point where we say
the point where you kill it. Yeah.
We stop.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So what is your target out of interest?
So it's between 20 and 30. We don't really like to be too high. We are buying businesses. Obviously, you always like to be the highest possible, right? So if we launch a product, we love the product to be 40%. But when we buy a product, we actually like it to be between 20 and 30, because again, below 20, you're too close to the 10. And above 30, as everything is very competitive on Amazon and very transparent, it's too risky that, competition comes in and will push you to reduce your margin. So if you buy it, when you pay a company, a brand like we do, it's a multiple of the margin that we pay. So if the company margin decrease, as a result, we basically lost money. So that's why we are cautious usually when the business profitability is above 30%.
Yeah, interesting. And so the contribution margin, not the EBITDA, I guess. But yeah, that's very interesting. And that makes total sense. There is, in other words, a range that you can operate in. Below a certain amount, it's not economically viable. Above a certain amount, your competition will make sure that it goes back to that range below 30%, right? So this is self-correcting. Amazing. Well, look, there's tons that you could teach us, but I think to keep today's topic absorbable for mere humans that don't have your kind of brain, we ought to wrap it up quickly soon. But have you got any final thoughts about SEO? Let's start with a final question. Two questions actually. First of all, what classic mistakes do you see the brand owners coming to you in the SEO area that they've been making that you guys have to correct? Let's start with that first.
Yeah. mistake that we did as well. So the main issue with SEO is that you're overwhelmed with information. You say, hey, there is thousands of keywords that make sense to me. And you go for quantity instead of quality because, again, you don't have this analytics that tells you, okay, this keyword selling 100, this keyword selling 50, this keyword selling 20. And you tend to prioritize all of them. And you prioritize as much keyword that are making 1 unit per month versus the other one that are doing 1,000. So I think that's because you don't put the analytics to estimate the volume sold per keyword. So that's the number that I think that's the main mistake. By the way, we did at the beginning.
Excellent. Yes, that's a really very, very good point. So treating everything as if it's equally valuable because of overwhelm, whereas in fact, I guess even if you just manage to identify the top 10 most valuable keywords in a niche, or even top five, if you're feeling overwhelmed, that's probably more valuable, right? So that's a very, very good point. Um, I'm going to go and revisit brand analytics because I'm clearly missing out on some really valuable information that they sneaked in there. So branded obviously is one of the places where um, you're acquiring a lot of businesses, but you also work in a slightly different way with the brand. So we spoke to Patrick about that, Patrick O'Connell, who's obviously sort of heads up your acquisition efforts to some degree. But what would you say to anyone who's listening and thinks that they need some help with the operations? How does branded work together with business owners from an operations perspective?
Yeah, I think the thing that we have that is hard for usual brand to have is the team in China managing the sourcing and the supply chain and the logistics. I think that's one thing that is very, very hard to replicate because it's, you just need to have a team of 20 people in China, which is not easy to recruit and to manage, to find the right talents. So I think that's the one thing that we have that enables, a company like Branded, each time we buy a company, we reduce COGS, the cost of the supply chain overall by 10%, either with renegotiation, either with changing supplier, also by consolidation of our logistics to get full container and those kind of things. So that's definitely probably the most immediate lever that is straightforward to action when we acquire a company.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And just to clarify my understanding, just to reiterate what we spoke to Patrick about earlier, which is that you generally work alongside, so have the CEO, the founder of the company, the CEO, stay on as CEO or the managing director for 3 years or so, and they get a part of the equity, which will hopefully grow over time. So a little bit of a different way of operating. And I have to say that, as you say, one thing we discussed before the show that we deliberately chose not to discuss is because it's hard for anyone else to replicate. Is exactly that thing you said. If you can get 10% lower costs on your supply chain, then you can beat everyone else all day because you offer a competitive price. And as you say, great products at the right price is always the absolute brutal truth of Amazon, right? It's an efficient market, so that in itself is worth the conversation with somebody about. So my understanding, and correct me if you're wrong, but Patrick was saying that you were looking for people doing $3 to $5 million a year plus, with a market that could grow with unique products, and you're really nailing the needs of a particular niche. That's what you're looking for in the businesses. Is that right?
Definitely, and passionate people about their product. And that's what is the most important and most difficult to find and to replicate for us is the passion for the product, to understand the customer needs, and as a result, to identify what's going to be the next winner in the market.
Well, look, this has been really eye-opening for me. I think I need to go away and revise my SEO approach. It sounds like actually the nice news to summarize is that actually there's a lot of simplification that's going to come out of the other end of this process. It might take a bit of brain work in between, and we've got some nice concrete numbers on which to base decisions to sunset products, which is always a heartache moment. But I do believe that by sunsetting the wrong products, you give yourself the chance to work on the right products. And I think you've given me some fuel to go back to some of my clients and sort of have that conversation, which is never fun, but ultimately grows their business. So Alexis Lanternier from branded.com, final thing just remains for me to say many, many thanks for coming on the show and sharing your great insights into SEO today.
My pleasure, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Okay, and that's our recording done. So if you're watching on the live or on the replay, feel free to pop any questions in for Alexi and myself. But for now, many, many thanks for watching with us. And Alexi, once again, thanks.